What's your childhood mystery that you finally solved years later? The entire time I lived in my childhood home, my mom hid my Christmas presents in her secret hiding place. She made it sound mystical and mysterious a few months ago, a while after I moved out. She finally told me what the secret hiding place actually was. The Christmas tree box in a cabinet in the garage. She would replace the Christmas tree with my presents when she put the tree up. The weird smell that I referred to as a stinky cheese smell were probably a symptom of seizures. I would happen maybe twice a year. It's not really like cheese. It's like a smell that isn't a smell. IDK, how to even describe it. It was so minor parents disregarded it. I can remember it starting in 2nd grade. I suddenly started having it a lot more as an adult when I hit 28 and got diagnosed 2 years later after symptoms became way more extreme. Makes so much sense now. My dad used to occasionally burst out with this one line of a song. ... said Barnacle Bill the Sailor. Only ever that line. When I was 6 or so, I asked him why, and he said it was an old drinking song that was absolutely filthy and I was too young to hear the rest of it. This continued once or twice a year until I was 18. I told him I was an adult now and he could tell me the rest of the song. I distinctly remember him looking up from the newspaper, sighing and folding it, then going, "The truth is I can never remember the rest of the song." And then went right back to reading the newspaper. Not the biggest mystery, but one day my friend was over in my house playing video games. My mom called us over to her room to help flip the mattress over. So we did. We then went to another friend's house. My mom calls that friend and says, "There was two $20 bills on top of the dresser. Did you get them?" I said no. I asked my friend. He said no. Like 5 minutes later, my friend says if we want to go to the toy store because he has $40 in two $20 bills. I say yes and we go, and he buys me a yo-yo or something. It took me years to finally realize that my friend stole the money. I remember being about 8 and in the car with my dad. I was in the front seat and we were driving somewhere. And this song came on the radio. He cranked it and said something about it being the best guitar playing ever. He really jammed out, which was really uncharacteristic because he was usually so stoic. It was the only time I heard the song. And he died before I could ever ask him what song it was. When I asked around, no one knew WTF I was talking about or what song I was thinking of. So I had this melody in my head for years. But how do you look up a song that has no lyrics? So for years and years, this song stayed on the back burner in my brain. I was afraid to forget it. Somehow this story pops up when I'm like 26 or so, chatting with my husband, and we searched YouTube for best guitar songs. After about 15 minutes, we find it. Cliffs of Dover was the song that I'd burned into my brain on repeat for 16 years. Now I jam out to it with my kids. Edit. Thank you so much for the kind words and awards. I'm kinda speechless at how big this post got. But thank you. That the brown part of bread doesn't contain the nutrients. It's just the more cooked outer layer. My brother lied to me to get me to eat crust when I was a kid. When I was in elementary school, I always wondered what the teacher's staff room was like. It seemed so mysterious, and I remember trying to get a peek anytime I walked by and the door would open. Later became a teacher and can fully confirm they're dull, often toxic spaces full of cranky teachers complaining about students. Reverse of this. As a kid, my dad would call me from the other side of the house to bring him something to drink from the kitchen. He always drank from a straw in about 1st grade. I started getting annoyed at this, so I started poking a tiny hole in his straw as my own little vengeance. I didn't come clean about this until I was like 22 years old. The look on his face was priceless. It's like he instantly snapped back to then and knew exactly what I was talking about and just said, "Son of a asterisk 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 asterisk. You did, didn't you?" He just thought we bought cheap straws. I visited my dad when I was 6 or 7 years old at the place where he worked. Or so I was told. I remember remarking at the time. And people laughed at me. Because I said it looked just like a prison. The people laughing were the guards, and I was indeed visiting my dad at Terminal Island Federal Correctional Institution, where he was a federal inmate. Growing up, I always insisted I liked the mashed potatoes at my grandma's house better than the ones my mom made at home. My grandma once told me it's because she uses a special recipe. I found out last year that my mom hand mashes her potatoes. My grandma just gets the Betty Crocker boxed shit. Her special recipe, I was gonna get what she dies as Betty fucking Crocker. When my brother, my sister and I were kids, there was the incident of the little M's. I must have been about 5 years old. My brother 7. And my sister 9. One evening my mum had been decorating the living room, and about halfway up the wall were these little squiggles that appeared in pencil on the freshly painted wall. They went the whole way along the wall and the entire way around the room. When my mum saw them, she hit the roof. There was hours of screaming and grilling and trying to get one of us to confess to writing on the wall. I was the prime suspect, being so young. But on closer inspection the little squiggles looked like little M's, with my sister's name beginning with M. She was also a suspect. My mum sent us all to our room to talk through which one of us was going to confess. When we all get to our bedroom, we quickly figured out none of us had done it. We knew one of us had to confess because my mum was, well, batshit crazy, so me being the youngest took one for the team, as we had decided I would be punished the least. Many years later we asked her about it. She admitted that she had figured out the next day that it had bled through the painting from underneath. Someone must have marked a border around the room. Possibly for a dado rail or something. We laughed it off. But we were pretty pissed she didn't admit it and apologize at the time. Until my mum finally shed light on it. My brother, my sister and I would sometimes say to each other, "Remember the little M's?" in such a world-weary way. Edit. Grammar and spelling. Edit 2. Changed from Ms. to M's. As in there was what looked like lots of the letter M around the wall. Not sure if this is considered a mystery or not. My mother, who passed about in 2009, used to make a meatloaf every single year on Groundhog's Day. Every single year she would tell us it was groundhog, and I always thought it just tasted like ground beef. But I was kid. I am 33 now. Last year I said something to my brother about it and asked if he knew where mom got the groundhog. I wanted to do that for son. My brother had no idea what I was talking about. I told him about it and he started laughing. My wife started laughing. My own son, who didn't know why, started laughing. Mom got me good. Mystery solved. It was just regular meatloaf. When I was really young, me and my siblings would play in my grandparents' yard. My grandfather would tell us to stay away from the skunk hole at the edge of the yard. We lived in South Texas, so this wasn't something out of the ordinary. And we just avoided it like any other animal home. Years later it dawned on me. It was actually the septic tank access. My mom used to call us in for dinner by yelling out the back door from the kitchen. I was in middle school before I realized the screen door was actually called a screen door. We grew up poor, and at the age of 10 my friends were all having these crazy birthday parties with petting zoos, bounce houses, clowns, etc. So my mother, who is very resourceful, decided I would have a sleepover for my 11th birthday. It was great, and we were gonna make ice cream cones. So we got all the stuff out with my mom. And my mother opened up the box of cones. And they were all smashed up. She said that we weren't having regular ice cream. We were having Magic Castle sundaes. Because the broken ice cream cones resembles the sections of a castle. We all thought this was great and we had them. When my friends went home, they asked their parents to make Magic Castle sundaes. 2 days ago I found out that my mother was getting the past sell-by foods behind the grocery store. They were not expired. Just past sell-by date. She had no idea that the cones were brown up until she opened them with us. She thought of the Magic Castle idea quickly. And we all loved it. Just goes to show how stupid kids are, lol. I live and grew up in the deep south. As a child, from earliest memories until about 8, we would take a winter trip up to Stowe, Vermont to see the grandparents. I would have scary nights hearing ghosts wailing outside the windows. It was terrifying. GPs moved south and we stopped going. When I was in my 30s I took another trip up to Vermont. First night stay, I heard the ghosts. Turns out the winter winds up north are way different than the winds of southern nights. Suddenly my general fear of the dark disappeared as I realized fully what the source of the sound was. When I was 10 my godfather gave me $20 as a Christmas gift. At the end of the dinner the money had disappeared. For years my parents blamed me for being irresponsible with my money. Years later we figured out, after she was caught stealing stuff from my aunt's house, that my cousin's fiancé at the time is a kleptomaniac. Turns out she was the one that stole the money. When I was 4, I vividly remember getting into my mom's car and her telling me that our cat had died. She told me how she rushed him to the vet and he was shedding fur, something was seriously wrong. Despite her best efforts, he died. I never knew why he died. And why it happened so suddenly, but I accepted that it happened. Fast forward about 15 years. I'm home from college for Christmas. On Christmas Eve, I'm out driving to the store with my dad and uncle. They are talking about the cat my parents got for Christmas one year. The cat mentioned above. My dad says, "Yeah, that thing was too aggressive. So I took it to a farm and gave it away." Normally, when the family pet dies, the parents lie to the kid and say it went to a farm upstate somewhere to ease the burden. Not my parents. They told me the horrifying truth, even though it wasn't, true.